With that understanding of the AI prompt writing structure and that beginning of that conversation of what makes a prompt effective or not, let's actually take a look in real time at some examples of what we would consider to be an effective prompt and one that are ineffective, so we can better understand the difference and how it actually impacts the way that ChatGPT responds to us. Let's jump right into it. So let's take a look here at my first prompt that I wrote. And this is actually an example of something that I would do quite often at the beginning of my journey with ChatGPT. I would just go ahead and open up ChatGPT and put in something like, tell me about a book, or what's space, or something like that. Now, why is this ineffective? Well, number one is that it doesn't really give ChatGPT much to go off of. And so what you'll see now, especially as the models become more advanced, is that it'll actually respond to you and ask for better clarification. So I asked it to tell me about a book. The first thing it did was say, hey, what book are you interested in? Are you looking for a recommendation, a summary, or something else? Right? It's trying to better understand what my intended output is. What do I want out of this? Think of it very similar to if you're working with a colleague. If I approach you as a colleague and I say, tell me about a book, your mind's going to start racing about, well, which book, what type of book, why do you want to know, what do you want to know about my knowledge about the book, right? Your mind starts racing and racing, and then you may not necessarily give the answer I was looking for. But it's not your fault. It was more so my fault as the instructor not providing clear instructions. If that's the case for colleagues, then for AI, it's even more so, because AI doesn't have the benefit of fully contemplating and thinking through, okay, does he want this, does he want that? So in this case, it actually pushed back a bit and asked me, okay, what book are you interested in? So then I went ahead and said, tell me about the book Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Is it an improvement from the first prompt? Yeah, absolutely. We got a little bit more specific. We're listing out the specific book that we look at, that we want to look at. And so again, our AI's job is to try to answer our questions in the best way possible. So it went ahead and gave me a full-on summary. So it provided me an opener. It's giving me a plot summary idea, highlighting some of the key characters, the themes, legacy, and impact. That's better. And this is great. And sometimes that might be what we need. There are certain situations where we don't necessarily know what we're looking for, the answer, so we just want to ask a generic question. And so what we see here is we got a pretty generic answer. ChatGPT, based on the very limited information that I gave it, is trying its best to figure out what it is I'm looking for. So it's going to give me a little bit of everything. It's going to give me a little bit of the plot summary, going to highlight key characters, provide me with some themes, even though I didn't really ask for that, and then also some legacy and impact. So we saw that point. Let's take a look at what it looks like when we actually revamp our prompt a bit and start to bring in some components of the AI prompt writing structure to make for more effective prompts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate over to the sidebar here, and I'm going to access my chat history, and we're going to take a look at this prompt right here. So this time what I asked ChatGPT is the following. Can you provide a summary of the key themes in Ray Bradbury's novel Fahrenheit 451? Please provide an explanation of the key characters and how the book's themes impacts their experiences throughout the novel. It's a chunkier prompt, but it is way more effective in terms of getting the output that we're looking for. And the reason being is that we've laid out pretty clearly our goals and the additional context to really help supplement and help ChatGPT get a better idea. If I were to go up to my colleague now and ask him or her this type of question, assuming they have the knowledge of this book, they're going to have a much easier time answering my question because it's very targeted. So let's take a look. I provided my goal. Can you provide a summary of the key themes in Ray Bradbury's novel? Great, so it understands what I'm looking for. But I didn't just say provide a summary. I wanted to specifically focus on themes. And then to add to that instruction, I added a little bit of an extra layer. Please provide an explanation of the key characters. Okay, that's very specific. And how the book's themes impacts their experience throughout the novel. This is targeted, this is direct, this is specific. It gives just enough context to let ChatGPT know what we're talking about, but it's also incredibly clear with its goals. And you'll see that result here. So you can see in the summary, whereas in the first prompt we had a pretty major opening summary trying to kind of summarize the entire book, it's giving us a much smaller one because we didn't necessarily ask for that summary. But what it is going to focus on are those key components that we were looking for. So the key themes, the key characters and their experiences with these themes. Just by taking a little bit more time, a little bit more thought into our prompt, you can see how different that result is. This is what I was looking for. But it was dependent, ChatGPT was dependent on my ability to ask for it. And that is something we're going to reiterate and sort of keep hitting and keep touching upon. Your AI is only as smart as the data that you put into it. When I write better prompts, I am training my AI to respond more in kind. It's going to respond with more accuracy. It's going to respond with better consideration into my speaking styles and my mannerisms and so on. But it's dependent on me writing those good prompts to get there. Let's go ahead and in our sidebar again and take a look at another example. So here's another common mistake that I committed in the beginning of my journey and I see still to this day. Here's the prompt. How can our mid-sized retail company increase brand awareness, drive more foot traffic to our stores, improve our online sales, enhance our social media presence, and streamline our email marketing campaigns? Now, on the surface, does that sound like an ineffective prompt? No, it seems like it hits upon everything I'm looking for. What makes this ineffective, however, is that we are providing a ton of different instructions and they're not cohesive. So what might happen is that our AI tool can get a bit overwhelmed and either it won't respond or perhaps it'll try to give us the most generic and bare bones response it can to make sure it touches upon all the options. It can be very easy, especially towards the beginning of our journey, to feel that we have to put in every single instruction we're looking for in one prompt. But that's not the case. So how do we change this into something a bit more effective? Well, let's go ahead and open that up here. So if I scroll up to this chat history, what I did was that I took a look at that big prompt that I wrote that had all those different instructions and I said, why don't we start with just one? Let's focus in on one. So this is what I asked. How can our mid-sized retail company increase brand awareness through social media marketing? Now, could I have improved that prompt? Of course, I could have added context, tone, source, and all that, but this is still an improvement and this is still a much more effective prompt because it's very directly focused on one area and is not overwhelming ChatGPT with several different responses. And so what will happen is that you're going to get a much more specific and targeted effort here and messaging. It's going to focus on that business aspect. It's going to focus on brand awareness and provide you with feedback on how to do so. And then what you can do afterwards is just continue to refine and reiterate. So you can see that here. So I got that first response. I asked my question initially. I got my response. I'm reading through it and I actually became pretty curious. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Based on your analysis, what social media platforms do you recommend to be utilized to raise brand awareness? And this is the great feature of AI tools like ChatGPT is that iteration and refinement. You don't have to put all of your instructions in one place. Break it up, ask some follow-up questions, be inquisitive, and you will see such a huge difference in the way that AI responds to you. You can take a look here. So I went ahead and answered my question, and it also just provided me with some additional features. So the why, the key features, etc. This would not have happened had I not taken the time to, one, separate that big prompt into more digestible chunks, and two, continue to iterate, refine, and ask follow-up questions. And when you're able to acknowledge and understand how to write effective prompts, and you pair that with your ability to continue to follow up and refine, you're going to start getting a ton of better responses and outputs. And I feel like your time using ChatGPT is going to be much better, more efficient, and a little less heartache and a little less headache in there.